A child with math homework and asked, "What number is X worth?" George Carlin said, "Think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that." What real-life example have you seen that validates this view? Getting a misstyled call from a random person who gets mad at you because you're not the one he or she was looking for. Happens with me several times a year. Customers arguing that their tattoo is backward while their artist tries to explain that no, your tattoo is fine, it just looks backward because that's how mirrors work. My dad is a pesticide investigator for the state and heard this on a complaint. I set out all these bird feeders and bird baths but not one bird comes to my yard. I bet it is all those pesticides that crop duster is laying down in the field, local school board member, as they were standing in her 5-acre yard with 20 or more cats running around. At the start of working from home due to COVID, I had a few users submit tickets for connectivity issues. These tickets got through 2 lines of support before landing in my queue. Turns out that the corporate Wi-Fi doesn't follow you home and you need home internet in order to connect to the VPN. About half the calls I take on a daily basis. People call 911 to ask whether Walmart is open. To report that they didn't get enough mayo on their burger. To complain that cleanup at a fatality wreck is taking too long. All sorts of silly, out-of-touch shit. Granted, there is probably some level of mental illness and/or substance abuse present in those calls. But still. I used to manage a retail store that sold teen clothing, so as expected, I primarily had teens working for me. One employee came to the back room while I was on break and asked what I was eating. Somehow the topic turned to how I should have brought chicken for lunch because she wanted chicken. I told her I was vegetarian and therefore don't eat meat. She tells me chicken is not meat. It's poultry, and vegetarians can eat poultry? She said at the grocery store the aisles list meat and poultry separately, so they're obviously different. We argued for a couple of minutes before I finally told her to go back to the sales floor. She didn't last at the job long. Damn. You know the reason you bury a rattlesnake after you kill it is that bees will eat it, then bees can sting people with rattlesnake venom, a guy I heard constantly trying to pick up women on public transit. I used to work for a chatbot app. Our app would text our users every morning with a greeting in a different language, i.e. hola, bonjour, etc. One day we got blown up by a user saying their account was hacked. She said, "My name is Kim Smith, not Kim Konnichiwa, someone's hacked my account." When we explained that our service has been clearly saying hello to her in other languages every day and that Konnichiwa is hello in Japanese and her account was fine, she went on a racist rant and said Disney was behind the destruction of America. Yep. I worked in retail for a few years and it taught me that many people are either incapable or unwilling to read. I have had people walk up to me to ask me how much something is, only for the price tag to be featured prominently on the item. "It's $9.99, ma'am." "How did you know?" "It says so on the price tag, ma'am." I worked with a lady who was remarking on how a friend of hers had lost a bunch of weight. She pondered, "I wonder how many Diet Cokes she had to drink to do that." I worked at a bank. Mobile depositing had just become a thing. We received a picture of someone's cash for a deposit. Yay! I just had a customer yell at me for putting their eggs in a separate bag, saying they don't want all those bags and the paper ones always rip. Before putting it in the bag and throwing a pound of flour on top. It was somewhat satisfying seeing their face as we heard the cracks until I realized I'm the one who needed to clean it up. Oh, also she complained that we hadn't warned her about the fragility of eggs. A former coworker was talking about how she wanted to go back to school to get her master's degree because she only had a bachelorette degree and wanted more job opportunities. I said, "Do you mean a bachelor's degree?" She insisted it was pronounced bachelorette when it was given to a woman. Then she led me back to her office and pointed at her diploma, to the word baccalaureate, and said, "See? Bachelorette. I teach 6th grade. One time a parent came to me after trying to help their child with math homework and asked, "What number is X worth?" It feels like it changes with every problem. A woman I used to work with who insisted that any animal could reproduce with any other animal. She believed that sperm from any animal was the same and that DNA was irrelevant. She believed this because she once saw some sickly, possibly deformed puppies, and decided that they must have been half dog and half rat. When farms have trouble producing their crops, and you ask some dipshit if that worries them, I don't get my food from a farm, I get it from Walmart. Was at a party and someone's shitty old truck got stuck in some mud, so instead of sobering up and coming back the next day, he makes a Molotov cocktail with gas and throws it at the truck. The truck caught fire and was completely destroyed. When I was in high school, we were reading a short story about what would have happened if the Japanese attacked us back with nuclear weapons after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A girl in my class raised her hand and said something along the lines of, "Why does this matter? None of it is real anyway." The teacher had to ask her to clarify, but this girl thought World War II and the bombing of Japan were just from a movie and didn't actually happen. The best part is, the girl was half Japanese. I'm an insurance claims adjuster. If you truly knew how many stupid drivers you're sharing the road with, you'd never drive again. The infantryman was told to trim the hedges. So he lifted the lawnmower. His buddy started it. As a brand new medic, I spent about 6 hours pulling finger meat from the hedges. There is considerable overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists. Yosemite Park Ranger on why it's hard to design a bear-proof garbage can. The woman that called into a radio station to complain about the deer crossing signs on a highway, saying that the deer will see the sign and consider this place a safe place to cross the road. On September 11th, the general manager called his daughter, who was attending ASU, to wake her up and make sure she saw what was going on. The customer service manager said, "It won't be on her TV yet, Arizona is 2 hours behind us." One of my nieces had a cold as a toddler and was breathing through her mouth. My ex-Bill flipped out because he didn't want her to get carbon monoxide poisoning from breathing through her mouth instead of her nose, the normal way. I once offered a girl a tuna sandwich and made a comment about the tuna being dolphin friendly. She then said, "I thought tuna fish came from dolphins?" I work in IT. I once had a lady call me from home because she couldn't get connected to her VPN. I asked her if she was connected to her home wireless network. She replied saying that she did not have home wireless. I then asked how she was connecting to the internet. Her reply was, "I'm using the cell tower. I can see it from my house." While this is technically possible with a hotspot or cellular card in your PC, this isn't what she meant. She thought she could get internet service via Wi-Fi from the cell tower. I once owned a smart car and some stranger approached me at a gas station about why I didn't have a slow vehicle sign in the back of it, since all moped cars must have that. I tried explaining that it was a real car, just a bit smaller, but he didn't take it. According to him, I was driving illegally and he was surprised the police hadn't stopped me yet on the highway. Worked at a larger grocery chain whose deli used scales that would show you digitally the weight, so 1.5 pounds would show 1.50 pounds on the scale, etc. The person I worked, 35 years, had to ask me to come over and tell her how much she had sliced every time she assisted someone for over 4 months. She had passed the written and verbal test they give to verify that you should be able to do this. She didn't seem to have problems reading any other signs or numbers, so I don't think dyslexia played a part, but man, it was so frustrating trying to do my job and hers. I worked at Little Caesars and we were proofing the dough for pizza. My boss said, at 7 p.m., that the dough needed to rise for 12 hours, and took out her calculator to do the math. So I said, that's gonna be 7 a.m. Then she said the dough will expire in 48 hours and started doing the math again. I told her it would expire 2 days from now, and she said, "That's kinda weird how that works out, huh?" I quit shortly after that. I had a friend once who truly believed that magicians like Chris Angel and David Blaine had some kind of magical power of telekinesis, something along those lines. While watching one of those magicians on TV performing on the street, he argued, "How could this be fake? Look at all those people. Can't fake all that. Has to be some kind of power or magic." I would then have to ask, do you realize that movies are fake? They fake entire universes, planets, cities, war, etc. He didn't get what I was getting at. The old boss had a morning routine of walking around the office with a bucket. He was watering all of the plastic flowers. I work at a restaurant. We were low on tomatoes for our tomato soup, so one person grabbed potatoes to see if we could use those instead. Just scroll down a web page or Facebook feed and have a look at the ads. Things like only 2% can solve this puzzle shit like that. Those ads get posted so much because they actually work on a lot of people. In grade 10, we had a science test, and the teacher gave 1 point for putting a date on the paper, and 1 point for your name on the paper, and then there were 98 points for the rest of the test. A guy sitting in front of me got 0.5 didn't write the date and only wrote his first name. One of my closest friends. Really good guy, but well, I'm learning Spanish, and I once told him I was reading this Don Quixote book. I complained about how difficult it was because it was written in 1605. And he said, wait, Spanish existed back then? I once got into an argument with someone over my own name. There are two pronunciations, German and English. And they just couldn't accept the fact that I used the English pronunciation despite the fact that we were speaking English and it's what I've used my whole life, but nope, I was lying to mess with them. When my mom unironically claimed that the moon landing was fake because the moon was like 40 times the size of Earth. How that proves it was fake, I don't know. Hate to think she raised me, lol. Knew a kid who drank bleach to prove it wouldn't kill you. A week later he showed up at school after taking a shot. He said he proved his point when the teacher asked why he was bragging about it. Mr. Hawk just said, but you cannot argue that without that medical treatment you'd have died, though you even said you have stomach damage and a burned esophagus yourself. This kid was bragging about that. He was not mentally disabled or otherwise. He was just that kind of idiot. That trick where you call water by a scary chemical name like dihydrogen monoxide so that people will want to regulate or ban it. That people act surprised at the total death count going up. It's always going to go up. If it was going down, that's an entirely different pandemic altogether. The Georgia senator that wanted to prevent sending troops to an island because he was worried it would capsize. At a work Christmas party in a Mexican restaurant, an Irish colleague was trying to argue the pronunciation of jalapenos with the Mexican waitress was jalapenos. He wasn't joking and got so upset with her taking the piss out of him that he made a scene and we almost got thrown out. Our town was live streaming a holiday parade in case you were not able to make it out in person. This included a live chat feature as well. One mother who lives nearby wrote into the chat that her daughter didn't get outside in time and asked for them to turn around and come back to her street. At a barbecue restaurant, I saw the barbecue plate was 8.99 and the barbecue platter was 9.99. There was no description underneath either one. I assumed you get an extra side, but I asked the waitress what the difference was. In all seriousness, she said $1. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.